Okay, so before we start, okay, this first one's asking about the point of intersection. Okay, so I want to make sure, and like if you need to write this down, write it down. All right, you should know if you do or not. But who can describe to me in words like what a point of intersection is? Point of intersection is, oh, check the chat. Good, Ricky. Where two lines meet. Yep, good, Leslie. Where two lines meet. Exactly. All right, so that's how it works if we have graphs, right? Like if we have lines to actually look at, okay, then it'd be where two lines meet. All right, but say we have equations, okay, like on this question 1 on your practice quiz. Okay, here they tell you to find the point of intersection, but they only give you equations. So we're kind of going to add to this definition. Okay, so not only is it where two lines meet, but it's also where two equations equal each other. If that makes sense. And if it doesn't, I'm going to show you what that means right now. All right, so if we have graph, if we have lines to look at, okay, we can use this first definition. That would make more sense. The point of intersection where the lines meet. But say we don't have lines, all right, and we have equations, okay, it's just going to be where the two equations are equal to each other. All right. All right, so when we have two equations, if it's where two equations equal each other, okay, then all we have to do to figure this out is we just have to put the two equations equal to each other. And then solve it. All right, so this is what I want to know. Like, have you guys done stuff like this before? Where you like take one equation, you put it equal to the other one, and then you get x by itself, and you do all that stuff. Have you guys ever done this before? Okay, so I'm going to make something, I don't know, let's say negative 3x plus 4 equals negative 5x minus 7. All right, so just like same as this, I'm just using different numbers. All right, so let's do this as an example, and that'll be the first kind of thing that we do here. All right, but to solve these, okay, we're trying to get x by itself. Okay, so if we have x's on both sides, we either have to move these ones over there, okay, or we could move these ones over there. All right, in my experience, most people like to keep the x's positive. So they would add the 5x's and move these ones to the other side. And then what that would make, negative 3 plus 5 would be 2x right there. And then the rest we kind of just copy and paste. It doesn't matter, you get the same answer either way. Okay, so now what do we have to do? We got the x's over here together. But there's a plus 4 out here, so how do we get rid of the 4? Good. I just saw that, Eduardo. Yep. Subtract it, right? Opposite. Now we're back to stuff you've already done before, like a lot. So now we'd have 2x, and that's going to be, what, negative 11? If we do negative 7 minus 4. All right, then, like you guys were all saying, divide by 2. Okay, so we're going to get this out of the way right now, okay, with fractions. All right, I don't care if you type this in and you get the decimal. It'd be like negative 5.5. Okay, I don't care if you do that. But what you're allowed to do is just leave it. If it's a fraction that you can't divide evenly, just leave it as negative 11 over 2. All right, if you want. You can do, I'm pretty sure it would be negative 5.5, the decimal. So you could do that if you wanted to. All right, questions at all? Does that clear it up a little bit, Jocelyn? All right, so that's how you would do number 1. How does it turn into a point on a graph? Oh, good question. Good question, because look at the answers here. The answers are points, right? Good call, Tyler. So let's go back to what we did there. I'm going to bring it up. So if you remember when we got our answer, okay, our answer was an x. It was x equals. All right, and if you think about, like, we're talking about points on a graph, okay, any point on a graph has an x and a y. All right, so what we just found, we found the x. It would be negative 5.5 or 11 over 2, whatever you guys want to put. Okay, and so then what we'd have to do now, we'd have to go plug that in to one of the two equations we were given to figure out what the y would be. Okay, so we had the negative 3x plus 4 on this side, so we could either plug it in there. All right, we'd have to multiply it by negative 3 and then add 4 to it. Or we could plug it into that one. Multiply it by negative 5 and then subtract 7. All right, so it doesn't matter which one you plug it into, but once you get the x, then you have to go plug it in to get the y. Okay, so like I'm going to do it into this one. So that we could actually have an answer. Negative 3 times negative 5.5 is 16.5. Then if we add 4 to that, it would be 20.5. So that's how you get the point. Thank you, Tyler. I always forget to do that. It says find the point of intersection for f and g using the algebraic method. And so when it says this, okay, algebraic means doing it using algebra. Okay, algebra means like multiplying, subtracting, adding, dividing, squaring, all that stuff. Okay, so the fact that like we had to subtract stuff on both sides and then divide and all this stuff, we're using algebra to find where the lines cross, basically. They're almost the same equation. Good eye, because they're close. This one's going to be kind of a special answer. But notice that this one here has a negative in front of the x. You okay with that, Jocelyn? Okay. It's going to make it, long story short, you'll figure it out when you do it, but it's going to make it so that one of them comes out to be 0. It's either going to be the x or the y that's 0, or it might be both. Okay, so I know I'm kind of giving it away there a little bit. It's not going to be either of these ones. But that's why, because they're so close, you'll see what happens when you do it. But it's going to make it so one of them 0. All right, number 3. Okay, this is the same stuff that we did last time when we talked about the plugging into the graph. Okay, so like this first one here says f of 4 equals, and like oh shoot, I got to fix that right now because you won't have a drop-down menu. Don't look at the answers. Okay, now it works. So you're going to have drop-down menus right here. All right, and it's asking you for f of 4. So remember, okay, this picture that they give you up here, that's f of x. Okay, so if they ask you for f of 4, that means they're basically telling you to plug in 4, go over to 4 on the x-axis, which is right there. Okay, and then we need to go up until we hit the line. Okay, it's basically asking you, when x is 4, what is y? So if you go over to your graph, you go over to 4 up to whatever, that should be a point. Okay, and that's how you're going to figure out what that is. All right, when you get to the next one, okay, this is f of 0. That just wants to know, when x is 0, what is y? Okay, so you should be able to see that point here. When x is 0, remember this is the x-axis, what is y? Does that make sense on the first two parts? Questions at all on that? Oh, if it's a 0, Jocelyn, I just saw that. If it's a 0, that just means when you go back to plug something into the equation, your x, when you go to plug it in to find the y, you're just going to be plugging in 0. So it's really just going to make your life easier. Oh, if you wanted to learn more about this, this would be called, I would say, all right, so then when you get to this last part, okay, this part down here, now it's asking you the opposite. Okay, remember, f of x and y are the same thing. So it's basically asking you, when y is 4, if y is 4, then what is x? Let me admit someone real quick here. Okay, so we would need to go look at on our graph, okay, find the point when y is 4. And then figure out what was the x for that point. What would the x be for that point? Okay, so they're either going to give you a y, ask you to find the x, or they're going to give you an x, ask you to find the y. Okay, just remember, if it's inside the parentheses, it's an x. If it's outside like that, okay, it's a y. Whoa. Question 3, that was linear. That was a straight line. Okay, now question 4, you have an exponential function. It's one of those curves, okay, that flattens out. All right, but you're doing the same thing. Okay, so the first two, they're giving you x's. They want you to find the y's. The second two, they're giving you y's. They want you to find the x's. All right, when you get to 5 here, okay, so I'm not even really going to go over this one. You can read it, okay, but I give you a function, okay. At the end, you can read what it's for, all right, and then I ask you a question about it. So you have to, again, plug in a number, but now it's not a graph, okay. So now we're plugging into a function. Okay, so what this should look like when you start your work, P of 4 would be 10,000 times 2 to the 4th power. Notice we're plugging the 4 in for the variable. All right, just remember when you go to solve this, okay, exponents come before multiplication. Okay, so you got to do the exponent first and then multiply it by 10,000.